Hello out there, everybody. It's Ralph Humphrey here, and this is another episode of Rhythmic Awareness, or maybe perhaps not today. Because today, what I want to talk about is something that was used in Frank Zappa's music, uh, generally known as the tuned cowbells. Some of you have been asking about that, so I thought I would talk a little bit about these tuned cowbells. Well, Frank was a lover of late Romantic period music, late 19th, early 20th century music, you know, Bartok, Stravinsky, and also a group of French composers, among them Edgar Varese, who wrote a percussion piece called Ionization. And I think Frank fell in love with this piece, and in fact had a correspondence with the composer. And so in Frank's music, you hear all sorts of interesting sonorities and textures and combinations of sounds. And so I think the cowbell sound, combined with mallet instruments like the xylophone and the vibes, and even synthesizers and trombones and other instruments that we used in the band, uh, the cowbells give an interesting texture and add to the music. So now these cowbells were designated as tuned cowbells in a lot of the writings that you see, but actually they were not necessarily tuned. Cowbells are not a pitched instrument, in at least a perfect pitch instrument. They have a certain pitch area for sure, but not necessarily pitched. Now, it might be that Frank actually chose these cowbells to fit his music based on how they were pitched from high to low, but I think it was probably a more random selection. Uh, so in my case, there were 5 cowbells, and I set them up over my first floor tom. Uh, the low pitched was on the left side, the high pitched was on the right side. Actually, it could have been the other way around. I can't remember. But what I had to do when Frank would say to me, let's put the cowbells on this particular part, many times he would not tell me in which order I would play the bells. He would just say, play the bells here. So I would choose to play those bells according to 2 things. Number one, the rhythm of the passage. I had to figure out a sticking for the rhythm of the passage based on where I wanted to go on the bells. And I was usually considering the instrument that I was playing with. And then the second thing was to, of course, make the pitches fit what music was happening at the time. So those were the 2 things that I had to deal with. Now, if you were to think about how close these cowbells were pitched to actual notes, I can say that from high to low, we had a B, an A, an E, a D, and a B. Okay? Now, I actually have a couple of samples of recordings of these cowbells. And here's the first example. This is actually the bells by themselves. Listen. One more time. Okay, so now those particular notes, and you can hear that the A, which is the second note, is slightly out of tune. It's more like a B flat in the cracks between a B flat and an A. So now let me play you another example where it's combined with the mallet instrument. Here we go. I think you also hear some rims with sticks. So there's actually 3 parts going on here. One more time. Okay, so you can see where the bell part actually adds an interesting texture to the music. Let me play you one more example. Here we go. Now this is a different combination of instruments. One more time. And one more time. Okay. So you get an idea of how the bells were being used in Frank's music. I think Frank liked to use them extensively. And then I had opportunities actually to bring them into some of my playing when I was improvising a bit more, especially in solo sections. in passages where I was left free to do my own thing. So with Frank, it was usually get the rhythm right. Other than that, the orchestration is up to me on the drum set and on the cowbells. So if you want to hear more of Frank's music, there's a collection that recently came out. And this is the box set. In fact, it's a big box called Frank Zappa Halloween 73. So that goes quite a ways back. And this is the band actually that was just forming right before we recorded live at the Roxy and elsewhere. And this box set comes replete with a Frank Zappa Halloween mask and gloves. So when you need to go out again and frighten your neighbors, you can take these devices with you. There's some very interesting things on this box set. There's 4 CDs. The 4th CD is actually some rehearsals that we did before we actually did our first concert in Chicago in 1973. And it shows the band in a slightly more informal setting. Also in this box set are some liner notes, some very extensive liner notes written by Ruth Underwood, the percussionist, the Vaultmeister himself, Joe Travers, and myself. And it gives you some insight, some further insight into Frank himself, his music, and some of the inside stuff that we were all into. So look for that. It's a great set. I can say the music really sounds great. So that gives you some information about how Frank wanted to use cowbells in his music and the fact that I was the delegated one to do it. I had a great time doing it. So that's today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next time. Bye-bye.